Hi, and welcome to the third video in the series of talking to our children about social media. The first video presented the idea of preparing our children for a digital life as being similar to educating our children about road safety and protecting them from harm on the roads. In the second video, I covered a little bit about the particular types of appeal or the benefits of social media and the harms and the risks of social media. And in this video, I'm going to talk more specifically about the actions that we can take as parents. Okay, first of all, this is kind of what I call the groundwork, which is one of the reasons why I think it's helpful for parents of even kind of very young children to be thinking about this already, even though they might be years away from children signing up for their own social media accounts or using YouTube independently, for example. It's the groundwork basically to ensure that you have a good foundation in place for the trickier, more specific conversations later on. Talk frequently, get used to being a family who talks and chats about things. Sometimes if you have to travel somewhere, for example, it can be a good idea to leave the scooter at home so that you walk together and talk. Share your own experiences. For example, maybe something you've seen online has made you feel unhappy. You can mention it. You can say you've decided to put your phone away for a bit. It's about talking out loud so that children learn that adults are making these decisions too. They're hearing our narrative, and over time they can internalize that for themselves. Going back to the road safety analogy, it's the same concept as when we say, oh, this road is a bit busy, so let's walk down to that crossing there where it's safer. Use the internet together. Start young. Model safety behavior. For example, you can have conversations with them about which apps they are or are not allowed to download. CBeebies Games apps, you might talk to them about how you know that's trustworthy because it's from the BBC. Another one you might say no to. Similarly, with slightly older children, you might, browse the internet looking for colouring sheets, because they really want to colour in, something that they're interested in. So you look together, but you name out loud the checks you're doing. You're mentioning, this looks like a safe website, or no, we're not going to get a colouring sheet from that one because I don't want to download anything from there. It's just about involving them the same way that we verbalise, for example, looking left, right and left again every time we cross a road with a toddler. We need to actively verbalise the thought process we're having about digital safety. Be open-minded, show your children you understand the appeal. So that starts from being interested if they have something to tell you about something that they like online. This will help you when you need to then talk about limits and restrictions later on, because they'll trust your judgment and your boundaries a little bit more. Similarly, be involved, be interested, ask them to teach you a game or explain a new app, whatever it is, in a curious way, not because you're investigating how safe it is, but to show that you're interested and that you have a right to be as interested as you would about their school day or the party that they went to, being part of their digital life. As your children get older, you might find it appropriate to be open about maybe your own mistakes, something maybe from the past, something you shared that you wished you hadn't, or you got involved in an argument on Twitter that you really didn't need to be a part of, and now you wish you hadn't. It's about demonstrating honesty and to show them that they can be honest with you, getting help when they need it and not criticism, so that they can come to you when they do encounter something difficult online, or if they have a problem with social media. Older children can sometimes feel that you'll be cross with them for using things they shouldn't have been using, or that you will use it somehow as evidence that you need to restrict their internet use. So they might otherwise be reluctant to come to you. The short version of this really is just as every other aspect of parenting, having boundaries, being consistent about what they are, and being honest, open and transparent about where those boundaries come from is a really good place to start. Okay, I promised some practical tips too. As I mentioned in the introduction, I have a really strong belief that there is no one right or wrong way to go about things. There are no specific sets of phrases or actions that suit everybody. All children are different, all parents are different, and all families have got their own specific priorities and preferences. Also, social media is constantly changing, and so there's almost infinite specific issues you might come up against. So I developed this idea of a framework, a little shorthand toolkit for you to use to apply to any given situation. It is based on different psychological research and principles about talking to children or dealing with difficult situations. And it boils down to three things: educate, communicate, act. You can choose from a number of different ways of strategies for each level of that's appropriate for the situation or for yourself, most importantly for your child. I'm going to illustrate how it works using a specific example. It's an example of something that I'm coming across in my own practice quite frequently. It's about childhood anxiety and how use of social media may fuel it. Okay. So I mentioned in the earlier video about algorithms and algorithms in social media. I'm probably not the person to explain in detail how an algorithm works. I'll just say that it is a means of using the data that is held about us to figure out the most effective things to show us on the internet. For example, if you love cats and you often look at, like, or share content about cats, the algorithm knows that serving you up cat content is a good idea that is going to engage you even more. That's great if you love cats because you get to see more cats. But if you look at a subject that worries you, the more you do that, the more your device is going to present you with content about that subject. So that's one thing about the algorithm. The extra layer that we need to consider is that we know that content creators need to capitalize on those clicks or taps. So they need to kind of game the algorithm to get their content in front of as many people as possible. And this usually means that they have to adapt their content. And often the most effective way for them to do this is to oversimplify or exaggerate or sometimes lie, because it gets more attention and therefore more money for them. So I'm going to use a specific example, which is based on a lot of children I've worked with, but all mixed together. So this is not, I'm not talking about real children here. Okay, so a child watched some videos on TikTok that really scared him. It was about a particular illness. He watched and kind of liked a few TikToks about it, and now everything that is presented to him when he opens the app is either about that illness or about similar illnesses. So if he wants to make a video of himself and share it, first of all, he has to wade through a stream of videos about hidden cancer. He is surrounded by his worst fear all the time when he uses the internet now. He also saw one video which told him that if he didn't like and share it, he would be more likely to contract this disease. So when his parents let him have his TikTok account, they talked to him about keeping safe online and not friending people that he didn't know in real life and not sharing content that would make him vulnerable. They didn't know about this side of it, about the content and the algorithm. Another example, a child watched some scary videos on YouTube about poltergeists. Now her autoplay goes from one scary supernatural video to another. Her suggested topics all relate to this in some way. She's 9 years old and she does not have the critical understanding that these videos are fakes. She cannot know, really, that the fact that 95% of what she watches on YouTube is purely because she watched one thing on YouTube. It feels to her as if this video evidence of evil ghosts is everywhere and that she and all of us are in danger. Her parents have got some internet controls in place, but not about poltergeists. They didn't know this was going to happen. So how does educate, communicate, act work here then? Okay, so for this example, educate. Talk about how algorithms work. Explain why they are why they are kind of being crowded and overwhelmed by this topic because of the algorithm. Talk to them about content creators and influencers, how they make money, why it's in their interest to lie. Talk to them about how to tell if something is trustworthy, how to identify misinformation or fake news. Communicate. You can be open about a time this might have affected you. You can acknowledge how hard it is to navigate, sympathise. I mean, when I was a kid, our version of this was like chain letters, where you had to write something out by hand like 6 times and post it on. So not only was it quite easy for our parents to intervene and talk to us about what a chain letter really was, but it was also a lot less tempting to get involved in. So it was a lot easier to not do it, and then to learn that there was nothing bad happened. Whereas a like and a share on TikTok or something is more tempting. You can also talk about, you can ask them to talk about if they or someone they know has experienced something similar. And again, it's about communicating that idea that whatever happens, you will always be more pleased that they've told you about it than angry with them that it happened. Okay, act. Okay, we know firstly that taking action is really good for children's well-being. It helps them feel safe, in control, and motivated. In this case, the action we could take is swapping out 10 follows for 10 inspirational accounts. So that's where they look at kind of 10 people or accounts that they follow already and think, and I'm going to swap this one for something that makes me feel good, or for something that makes me feel inspired. It's even better if you can make this a mutual activity where you together identify some things they're interested in, or maybe some aspirations, and search together for some good accounts. And then also you can follow up. You can ask them as days go by what they've seen, what they've learned. Also, by the way, it's quite good for adults to do that too on their social media. What else you can do? You can set them a challenge to nudge their algorithm to show them less harmful content. So you can set them a challenge, for example, of liking safe posts like cute cat pictures or something, to see and encourage them to monitor how that changes what's presented to them. But also, of course, there is sometimes a need to step in. So you can change your parental controls on your internet or the devices once maybe perhaps you've learned that there's some new topics you might add. I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that. But also you might just restrict access. So maybe YouTube can only be accessed on the smart TV in the lounge now. It's now blocked from bedrooms. It can be difficult setting these types of restrictions with children, but in my experience, parents do find it much easier to do this when it's done in conjunction with the educating and communicating, because children understand and accept the boundaries a little easier when they can see where it's coming from. So in any situation really, and it's actually not just about social media, but any situation to do with the internet, social media, where you're feeling shocked, out of your depth, or otherwise at a loss, just go back to this little memo: educate, communicate, act, and work your way through it. Educate. What do I understand about this situation that my child might not understand? Communicate. Be open, honest, share experiences, be their teammate, and act, thinking about some specific things that can be done. Okay, and I have some ideas on this slide coming now. So these are some websites. There's a thing here that you can use to structure a conversation, which is around how to spot fake news. There's also some articles on CBBC Newsround on their webpage. There's this Interland kind of game. There's the URL is here, but that's really good around training around safe internet behaviour. And similarly, there's a game here called Go Viral, which helps. It's a game for children where their task is to investigate misinformation. So those are some things you can encourage your child to do. On this slide, as I mentioned, so this is great. So the UK Safer Internet Centre, this is their website here, and they have got so many resources for you to use to help children and young people stay safe online. There is also an option there for you to report things that you feel need to be reported. We talked about parental controls. So the NSPCC website, the URL is here. But you can just enter it into a search engine, has really good step-by-step information about how you can put parental controls in place on different types of devices and Wi-Fi. Next, okay, here, the Young Minds resources for parents have got specific guides around social media as well, which are really helpful. These two books are fantastic. Parenting for a Digital Future by Sonia Livingston and Alicia Blum-Ross. They're both very kind of impressive and trustworthy researchers, and this book is great. But some of the research is there on the website. Similarly, Catherine Nibbs has this book and a website with lots of useful resources. I also mentioned earlier that I would point you in the direction of some good researchers. What I decided to do was give you their Twitter handles, because if you go to their Twitter pages, you will then have access to some of their research papers and quite a few links to kind of YouTube talks and presentations. So that's Dr. Amy Orban, Professor Andrew Shabilsky, and Professor Pete Etchells. I think Professor Etchells also has a book around online gaming. And my details, again, if you need me, my email address and my Instagram and Twitter account is right there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope it's been useful, and good luck.